So employer essentially hires and pays a guy for a couple of years just to train them on the job. And that's a huge national loss. The entire judiciary of this large ancient nation is in the hand of just 350 families. For 80 long years, just 350 families are appointing each other. Hindus temples donation and huge amount of gold is used for so-called minority emancipation. My goodness, what kind of religious setup we have? That means Hindus are funding their own extinction. In Muslims, you can marry to a 16-year-old girl in the same country with 4 of them. And if you do that any other religion, you'll be put behind bar for 12 years. What a mockery of the justice and system here. Ultimately, the narrative warfare only helps in a limited way if there is a limited war. But if there is a full-blown war, the narrative war has no chance to stand at all. Whilst they may be happy to show 6-2 versus 0 aircraft gestures in an international cricket match, they are the first coward who would give it. So Operation Sindoor Part 1 has been a phenomenal test laboratory for India. If Part 2 happens, which is most likely to happen, God save Pakistan. China will be a bruised country, and very badly bruised country, if China ever gets into a full-blown conflict with India.
Namaskar and Om Namah Shivaya to all. Welcome back to Purvapaksha channel. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel. अगर ये चैनल चलेगा तो आपके सपोर्ट से. So today we are honored to host a distinguished leader whose career bridges two powerful worlds, the Indian Army and global business. Our guest, Colonel Ishwar Singh, retired from the services now, served for over 15 years in the Army, holding the key appointment of Assistant Adjutant General in the Karnataka, Kerala, Goa sub-area headquarters. In this role, he oversaw the core pillars that kept military formations functioning: administration, coordination, national system, logistic, and civil military liaisons. Following his military services, he transitioned into the corporate world with equal impact. With more than 15 years of global experience across the GCC, US, India, Sri Lanka, and many other international markets, he now leads Orbit Staffing Innovation, a firm that has worked with major business houses and placed thousands of professionals across multiple countries and industries. Very few individuals combine defense insight, organizational discipline, geopolitics awareness, and global business leadership the way he does. Today, we will explore India's security environment, hybrid threats, geopolitics, global workforce trend, the future of industry in an AI-driven world, leadership, entrepreneurships, and the lessons shaped over the 3 decades of service. It is a privilege to welcome Colonel Ishwar Singh, soldier, strategist, and leader. Sir, thank you for joining us today. Thank you very much for joining us today, sir.
Thanks, Gaurav, thank you so much. So nice to be with you. It's always great to meet eminent personalities like you who really work so hard and present themselves in such a beautiful and constructive way. I'm absolutely glad to be with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. My first questions regarding to that is, with your 15 years in the army and 15 plus years in global business, what do you feel is the biggest gap in India today? For example, with respect to systems, coordination, leadership depth, or strategic thinking?
I honestly feel that, there is a plenty of talent available in India. India, by its race, I see the guys are pretty smart, pretty mentally mobile, unlike the other places I've been around, where people are more used to a straightforward line thinking and a formatted thinking. Here I see people are pretty, mentally flexible, mentally agile, and they are a fertile ground to learn anything very fast and adapt to it and produce results. But what the gap I've seen is our education system doesn't provide the employability clarity, employability direction to our youth. And because of the lack of, years of walking on earth experience, because of that lack of exposure, they always have, directional delusion. And that eats away a number of their years when they are, kind of employable and the profession is about to start. And that leads to a lot of problem. So I see there is a huge gap, very difficult to bridge at the moment, unless a focused approach is applied to it. And the gap is the employability of our products from the institutions, colleges, universities, professional places, even vocational institutes, and the employability skills and needs and demands of the industry. The gap is very high. So, it comes out to be like this. What is the use of you to be a BCom where you have put 10 plus 2 plus 3 and now it is 10 plus 2 plus 4 as per the new NEP 2020? What is the use of this BCom or say for that matter any other qualification from the day one in a private organization or a public organization? You cannot get into accounts and maintain them. So an employer essentially hires and pays a guy for a couple of years just to train them on the job. And that's a huge national loss. Now you aggregate these loss and accumulate it and you realize that it turns out about 40 lakh guys for a year or two are on the job training. So that's one gap. Second is the guys are pretty smart, but there is no leadership training. When I say leadership, I don't want it to be a big word. I don't want it to be a very hugely weighted aspirational word that every boy passing out or every girl passing out of a college should be a leader in themselves. No, what I mean is a leadership quality to the extent of taking the accountability for their own small assignment assigned to them or a portion of work assigned to them, not taking that responsibility, not taking that responsibility in the sense the responsibility of the outcomes of that functional responsibility given to them. These are the basic leadership qualities. So that's where I stand. That the education system, probably the NEP will address is much better, but till now, the education system gifted to us by a great Congress government or the great Congress party has been very dysfunctional to my mind.
Okay, sir. And with respect to strategic thinking, not only just in educational field, but also with perspective to the national thinking, are there any gaps the way government thinks or in strategic thinkings while implementing the policies?
India has lacked reforms for last about 70 years. I would be happy to hear from you or other experts. Show me the reforms in economic reforms. Show me the reforms in social reforms. Show me the reforms in the organizational structure of the government. Show me the reforms in terms of government delivery. Show me the
Hmm.
reforms in terms of legal reforms. Show me the reforms in terms of political reforms. Show me reforms in terms of the industry reforms like manufacturing reforms or other industry reforms. Show me the reforms in terms of monetary policy. Show me in terms of the fiscal policy. Show me any reforms. So India has been hugely lacking reforms because I'm of the opinion till about 2014, it was more or less like Ram Bharose. Okay?
Yes, sir.
When you say Ram Bharose, I would give it an English name that it was in inertia. And that inertia was carrying on and it was taking it on for far too long. That's why our system was creaking. That's why our system was leaking. There is just no delivery of judicial reforms. That's why as of now, as we talk, there are, if I'm not wrong, more than 5 crore cases pending at the district judge level and they don't get touched. So imagine how would the foreign FDI will come in India where they if get into a labor issue or a labor conflict because there are no labor reforms here and then it gets into judicial system, it takes 30 years to deliver justice. Which corporate
Yes.
will be able to afford that? Yeah. So in terms of strategic push to the government and the nation's trajectory, I believe there is a plethora of reforms which has fallen in 2014 onwards, whether it is called digital economy reforms, these are economic reforms. Almost all the reforms, if I were to name out, have been in place except for the judicial reforms. And there is a crying need of judicial reforms. What we started our topic with education. Even education reforms are in place now. You have a new education policy 2020, and offshoots of that have already started seeing on the surface. You have now quite a few Australian universities, UK universities, the European universities, and the US universities have started their campus in India. So now our young generation and youth will not have to break their bank to go to UK, US, Germany, Australia just to have a basic study there. They will afford the same study of those countries in the same universities, in the same colleges under the new economic, new education policy of the present day government of India in Indian cities. And you will have a lot of foreign remittance also coming to India because lots of South Asian, East Asian students will come to India to study in these colleges because they being available either here or in the respective country like Australia, UK, Canada, and US and the rest of the European countries.
Okay, sir. Just a connecting question to it, sir, since you touched a lot of very big points here. Now, when we talk about policies or reforms and stuff like this, so we have now started it after 2014, at least that we can say for now. But how long will it take? Because to match with the reforms and social policies that the Europeans or the West has, will it take time for India to cover it up, or how should India approach to it? For example, as the point you mentioned, that there are universities now coming from UK and other places to India. But we should mainly focus on, I think, on sciences and not on social sciences, because if we go into their level of social sciences, it will create more ruckus in India. What What is your perspective on this thing, sir?
Okay, let me come to this. It is something like we have a huge truck, okay? And I'm finding this analogy a little more layman analogy for
Hmm.
anybody to understand. So when we talk about reforms in a truck, it doesn't mean that you just tune up the engine and everything will be great. No, no. So reforms work in consonance.
Hmm.
Reforms work alongside the other reforms. A singular reforms in isolation may not produce you the same result. So when I say truck, you need to look at the suspension system and change the suspension system. You need to look at the brake system and change the oiling or whatever the whole of, kind of lining of the braking system inside. You need to check the air pressure system. You need to check the, kind of electrical system into it. Then you need to look at the chassis itself on which the platform is standing and the other reforms can take place. So what I mean is, then you need to look at the tires as to how much load bearing can take place. So what I mean is reforms in a government are also in the similar nature. And in India, there are a lot of areas where the reforms are yet to be started or the reforms have already been called stalled by
Hmm.
a lot of naysayer organizations and naysayer parties. Let me give an example. India by this time would have been a largely apportioned food processing capital of the world because we are in the Ganges basin for 30,000 years. We've been into agrarian economy until very recent. The agrarian portion of our economic output has been a major portion of the GDP of India year on year, right from the 1947 and right from the last 60,000 years, to say so. No, but what happened is the three farm reforms which we had brought, farmer reforms.
Yes, sir.
Those farm reforms with lots of foreign agenda, lots of foreign money, and lots of giving it a regional and religious color by making it a Punjab versus the central government, Punjab farmers versus the central government. The Khalistan sentiment was, kind of exploited to pump in illegal, illicit money of the drug cartel into it. And those laws were to be revoked by the central
Yes.
government. And who is the sufferer of that? Today, the biggest sufferer of that is the farmers themselves. And the majority of that is Punjab farmers. So Punjab farmers today are moving around literally with empty handed. Okay? And they are still under the clutches of Artiyas. Artiyas is their, Punjabi language where the Artiyas, which actually means the producer and then the mandi guy who manages the contracts in the mandi, and the end consumer, or say the distributor. So artiyas are the making money and not the farmers. And the farmers can now only sell in Punjab and not the rest of the country. Whereas the farm laws would have, kind of given an equal opportunity platform to all the states to sell wherever you want to sell without any taxation of the interstate taxation. But that lobby of commission brokerage, finally managed to bend the good intent of the government
Of the government.
and finally these laws were revoked. This is not the only example. If I were to give you a couple of more examples, the government wanted to bring lots of industrialization and a fair play for foreign investors and domestic investors to be able to, cut through the bureaucratic red tape and be able to start their own manufacturing unit or the other economic activity stuff. So they have brought in land reforms. And I believe in the very first government of the current dispensation, when they brought land reforms 16, exactly the same methodology was applied by the left liberal gang and the so-called left liberal Islamist combination to break the back of those land reforms. And today who's suffering? Same guys are suffering heavily because the government has not been able to procure those lands and provide industry around them. And now they are going around Tom and, like Jerry and going around hammering everywhere that there is no employment and employment. How do you get employment? Every single aspect of making a transformative change in the landscape of employability, you put the biggest spoke into it, you stall it, you bring it to a grinding halt, and you diffuse the momentum in it, and then you bring it down to ground zero. And then you go around, publicizing yourself that, look, I am an alternative because the current dispensation has not been able to bring it. So I have told you land reforms, farm reforms, and I can give you the best example, which is a crying need right now. Okay? And that is NJAC, National Judicial Action Committee, or the judicial reforms, to give it a simple name. The judicial reforms were, kind of blocked by filing a case in the Supreme Court by left liberal Islamist gangs, again with the foreign funded money, to not let go the hold on the judiciary they have. Now, the current day system is a collegium system, which actually you can give it another name, and for the lack of any better name, I will call it a mutual admiration club. One judge appoints the another judge appoints your son, and your son appoints his son. That's a collegium system. You will be surprised to know, Gaurav, that if you do a bit of research, you'll find the entire judiciary of this large ancient nation is in the hand of just 350 families. For 80 long years, just 350 families are appointing each other. And they have given it a beautiful name which can be must go, because the collegium system doesn't bring any registered by the foreign lobbyists, and they call it collegium system. It is accountable to itself. It has to be accountable to public. And if there is only one section of our society, our nation, which is just not accountable to anybody, even if your case is pending for 60 years, 60 years, a bloody 3 generation, it's 3 lifetime, and that system is called the judiciary of India. So I told you, judicial system, land reforms, farm reforms. Let me give you a few more reforms. Let me give you a reform of religious reforms. In our country, at the beginning, with a novel thought, it was said that everybody can practice their religion, and everybody is at liberty to propagate their religion. That has become the biggest curse of India today. Half of the South India is converted into Christianity by the Christian black money.
Yes.
blood money being funneled into this. And there are Christian conversion mafia gangs. There are Islamic conversion mafia gangs. They put a money and a motorcycle as a reward for each guy to convert at least one woman at least every 6 months. These are the calls they're made. So while Buddhists have their monastery and they themselves manage, Shironi Gurudwara Pradhabandak Committee, kind of manages its all Gurudwaras. All the mosque committee manage their own mosque and their if there is anything related to it. Jains manage their temple, and only and only religion, that is Hindu religion, is managed by the state government, all the state governments under Hindu Endowment Act. Our dear Nehruji has given this gift to us so that somehow this country is gradually snatched away from Hindus and eaten between many hyenas, and the hyenas' names have already given it to you. So, religious reforms have not been given. Hindus' temples have not been handed over to Hindus. Hindus' temples' donation and huge amount of gold is used for so-called minority emancipation. My goodness, what kind of religious setup we have? Okay. On one side, the most economically weak society is Hindu society in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, and these places. On the other side, whatever they have, they donate it to their temples. That money is grabbed by the government of the day, which is against the Hindu in these states, and they're spending, making one Christian church and one mosque in each village. What an irony in this world. That means Hindus are funding their own extinction. And that is the gift by Jawaharlal Nehru to this country, to have such beautiful acts like Hindus Economic Act. Then the other examples I can give you is the beautiful acts you would have heard about, the Waqf Act, where a Waqf board, which is an organ of the organization, can claim, can even claim the parliament, can even claim the Rashtrapati Bhavan, can even claim the Supreme Court's premises. And they've done so in High Court premises, they've claimed. They can
Yes, sir.
claim 4,000-year-old temples. Islam was not there more than 1400 years ago. How this damn thing has happened, So
Yes, sir.
that the Waqf board is one example. The separate, then social reforms are not there, like uniform civil code is yet to be implemented. There are no social reforms. In Muslims, you can marry to a 16-year-old girl in the same country with four of them. And if you do that any other religion, you'll be put behind bar for 12 years. What a mockery of the justice and system here. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And why those girls should suffer so much at the hands of these barbarics. Okay? So these are the kind of reforms which have not taken place. And then you are aware about the, Place of Worship Act. This Place of Worship Act has been brought only to put a legitimacy to all the temples have ever been conquered or brutally taken away by Islamic forces, or even for that matter, Waqf board can never come back. This was the whole purpose of. So there is judicial form reforms requirement. There is a social reforms requirement. There is a religious reforms requirement. There is a reforms required in the education policy which has just got initiated, and that they need to be further refined and pushed. There is a need for farm reform. There is a desperate need of farm reforms because we are an agrarian bowl and we are not, we are not exporting any processed food. We are only max to max exporting the grains, which is the basic raw commodity we are exporting. So
Yes, sir.
huge amount of reforms are still required. The government has shown its intent, has initiated a lot of works, and lots of results are also visible. The India has now become a fourth largest economy by GDP and destined to become the third largest by 2028 max, where we are expected to be a 5 trillion economy, the only country, second country from the Asia, or the only third country in the world. And that's by the dollar measurement. If you go by the purchasing power parity method, which is the practical method, but we are fooled through the dollar method, we are already a third largest economy with almost about 17 trillion GDP annum. That's how it is.
Yes, sir. Now, just a connecting question to the same points you said. You mentioned the issues. You mentioned like whatever government tries to do, and then these lobbies or these gangs, they'll come on the road and create ruckus or create issues. Then what can be the solution? Because we know now there are issues. We know these people do this. We know there are problems, but we need to also think from the perspective of solutions. So the last point you mentioned, we have issues. There are certain gangs or lobbies who do it, but then how to overcome these issues? Because that should be the major thinking or implementation that should be brought in to stop these lobbies or to take actions against these lobbies so that the reforms go on with the natural pace and process.
We are almost about, you know, 1.5 billion nation. That many minds are there, and that many selfish interests are there, and that many selfish interests groups are there. And we've been a soft country, so we've also been a kind of managed, pushed, prodded from all directions by various so-called NGOs and self-help groups and so-called religious groups from the world over. We've been a
Yes, sir.
world's railway platform where everybody has come, exploited it, messed it around and gone, or again come. So it's not going to be an easy thing for you and me to find an answer to this, how to do it. It's going to be a very gradual 3 step forward, 2 step back process. We will eventually, only move progress incrementally. Okay. The larger reforms, if can be brought out by the government, like electoral reforms, the population management reforms, they completely stop the appeasement politics and appeasement, acts like the Worship Act, the Work Act, the Places of Worship, and those kind of act, and the couple of others. Unless these are brought by this government and major changes are brought into social reforms, it will be very difficult for us to be able to do. And before the entire demography changes in India, we need to bring demographic reforms at a very supernorth speed. But the problem is what and how many directions the government will work with the equal intensity. The governments are known for not working in this country for 80 years. So we need to have patience. We need to, push and prod the current dispensation. We need to also support and stand by the current dispensation. We see a lot of promise in them, but we get exasperated sometimes. Like, I would love to have a population policy tomorrow, a population reform tomorrow. Because if there is a family here in Hyderabad produces has 4 wives and produces 26 children, how the hell is government supposed to be providing them the employment? The employment is providing responsibility is not there. Then you have no responsibility of, producing kids like pigs. Okay. So
Yes.
unless you stop using women folk as a population jihad, and you don't stop using women as a human production factory, no government can provide these employability to them. And that too when you study only in madrasa. When you study in madrasa, you only do a religious study all throughout your life, right? So how do you get employability skills? So there is a patience required in our side, and we need to also pressurize the government that you need to move faster. You already got 11 years. Bring some real reforms like demographic reforms, the education reforms where all the religious education reforms are thrown out of the window. They need to bring religious reforms in terms of releasing the temple so that the temple economy can take over. We have lived 30,000 years based on the temple economy, and they have Mr. Macaulay from Britain has systematically finished the Indian Balu culture, Indian Sanatani culture, Indian Rishi Muni education culture, and India's entire ancient education system was replaced by a stupid, repetitive, not job worthy English education system, and that has produced so many intellectuals without any employability skills, which are nothing but a talk shop. So we need to, bring back our temple economy, and that temple economy will produce employability. That temple economy will be able to take the government and the country ahead.
Absolutely.
Lots and lots of reforms are required on our side as we go forward. One nation, one election is pending. Work board should be abolished. Worship Act should be abolished. Population jihad should be tackled more so in the border.
I had just wanted to have a comment from you. The things that are at the moment happening, specifically because I come from that state, Maharashtra, so I wanted to ask you this question. The issues like on the language, that you don't speak Hindi, you speak Marathi and this stuff. Do these language barriers also affect industrialization in the state?
They indirectly do. They may not be affecting directly. And see, the reason for all this is not purely linguistic or regional pride per se. At some point of time, yes, it was more of a regional pride when we were not very nicely interconnected states and we were still amalgamating with each other as individual entities and states. But now that it has become a cosmopolitan, not only in Mumbai, but in Pune, Thane, Nagpur, Ahmednagar, and many other cities, not just the Bombay alone, and also in the other cities of the country, it's absolutely cosmopolitan culture. There is no just the they just know the only the state people being there. So what happens is this eventually leads to the pan-India parties becoming more prominent in these states. And that leads to the regional parties losing some ground. There are only two pan-India parties in this country, that is BJP, Bharatiya Janata Party, and the Indian National Congress. But there are many states where the regional parties have eaten into the Indian National Congress, political landscape. And if that happens, then the regional parties, find it very convenient and cheeky to raise such issues to basically, kind of raise the passions of the people on subnational pride. That's an easy trick or easy method, to attract back your voter base. But I somehow have my conviction on this that they may be a temporary solution for these regional parties. They cannot be lasting and permanent solutions to these regional parties. So unless these
Mhm.
regional parties come up with strong ideological alternate, offerings to the voter base, they won't survive for very long. And yes, they are more of a irritant than any major problem.
Okay, sir. Great, sir. Thank you, sir. So the next question was, sir, from your AAG experience, what weakness do you see in India's internal security framework? Coordination, response, or structural preparedness, specifically in light of incidents like the Delhi blast?
Yeah, so I tell you what, the Blast probably would have no direct connection with the military, security doctrine and military security setup. It's more of a internal security issue, which is dealt by the agencies and organizations which are part of the Home Ministry or Ministry of Home Affairs. Whereas, the defense forces are part of the Ministry of Defense. So there is an external security, dynamic for country, and there is an internal security dynamic for the country. So I would say that I was a regular part of the external security dynamic of the country, and there is a requirement of reforms there. Also, there is a requirement for reforms in internal security, and we are hugely suffering because of that. Look at the police reforms. They are pending for 80 years. There are no police reforms. The policeman on the street is extremely demotivated, extremely lowly paid, with no authority in his hand, and is expected to give you the internal security. But the political dispensation in each state, because it's a state subject, is not much interested in police reforms. At the end of the day, I think the central dispensation will have to come up with something about it. As far as the external security dispensation is concerned and that doctrine is concerned, I think we're pretty good. We have made some reforms very recently, and we are all aware about it, that we brought in the the man behind the machine. So the manpower reforms is what we were brought in, and that's called the Agniveer scheme of the Indian Army. For 4 years, a guy will be in the army, and only 25% of them, that the best among the best, because the screening system of the army itself is very strong. So all the, say, suppose for an example, we take 100 troops inside. Among these 100 troops also, they would minimum see two postings in 4 years. And within these two postings, a 25% best among the best will be retained and rest will be released into the society. And they will be absorbed in internal security setup or many of the paramilitary setup. So these reforms are very welcome reforms. That makes our archaic army, if I were to use that word, because we
Mm-hmm.
follow absolute, to the last T, we follow the British Army organization and pattern. But this is the first time that we have brought something distinct from the British Army legacy which has been handed over to us. So in a way, though it may not sound very pleasant, but we have a very archaic organization. So very mammoth organization, very powerful organization, but very archaic. So this is the first sign of a great reform. And I believe that itself was stormed by burning the whole country. At that time, there were full railway, trains burned down, railway platforms burned down, not to allow the Agniveer at that point of time. But I know till now, I think it's extremely settled issue. So now there comes the next point is the modernization of equipment. And that's going on at a huge pace. So there are reforms now in motion, but we need to build the urgency. There are other reforms which are going on, which are like instead of being, inter-services coordination and to remain our identity as different organizations like Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Border Security Force, now there are theater organizations coming into place. So that's how these reforms are in motion, and I'm sure we should be able to do a great job as we come forward. There are only two countries in the world which have theater commands, that is US and China, and we are going to be the third one. Even as we talk, we are definitely a number four external force power in the world. We have a standing army of 4 million people. Okay, and we have modern equipment, getting inducted into all the three arms of the, armed services, on a gigantic space. So I see that the external, kind of security landscape looks pretty stable and good. As far as the internal security setup is concerned, we need to be sanguine and conscious of the fact that we have various religious entities, and they would get exploited time and again. And moreover, you have a Islamic terrorism, Islamic jihad, kind of strain in the world as it is. You got it? Yeah, so coming to the point of internal security, I think we have an extremely layered and colorful society it can have in any country in the world. We are a unique country. So obviously we are susceptible and vulnerable to all those forces. We have Khalistani forces, we have jihadi forces in Jammu Kashmir, we have, Naxalite forces in the central part of India, then we have Christian forces in the southern part of India, then we have the, tribal forces in the northeast of India. So there is lots and lots of vulnerability. But as you see, the situation from 2014 onwards, it has dramatically changed because we have tried to cut out the financial funding of it. We have tried to cut out the religious trading behind it. We have tried to cut out and to stop the Hawala money transactions. We have tried to cut out the NGOs' direct involvement to all this. So there has been a lot of change, and we are also upped our game of intelligence gathering, like which has happened in the recent case. They have, kind of seized 3,000 kilogram of ammonium, and they've busted the whole cell. Just that one last guy in the last minute has managed to skip out because they could not do that raid simultaneously. So there has been a sense of confidence among the population about internal security far better and superior to what it was. But definitely it is not ideal at this stage, and there needs to be a lot onto it. And definitely we need to keep a check on those larger religious reforms I talked about. Unless those brought out, if you don't bring out demographic reforms, how would you stop the Islamic Jihad tomorrow in this country? Every gully has an Islamic guy. How would you stop them? They all get self-radicalized today. So there are a lot of interoperability, there are a lot of
Yes, sir.
interconnectivity, and everything has to be seen in a holistic way. And hoping that the Indian government is moving in the right direction is just that it accelerates even further more and brings it under further check. And that's how it should happen.
Okay, sir. Great, sir. Just moving on to the next one, I just wanted to have a comment from you on this. So, what do you think about Operation Sindoor and the action taken versus the narrative lack that we see now on social medias or news channels or on the international platforms?
So let me put it like this, Gaurav, that uh, earlier days, from the time of inception of war, as an instrument of politics or as an instrument of power or as an instrument of nations using it for bargain for negotiations. From the time immemorial, the war is always fought at two levels. One is the physical war, where we go out with our arms and ammunition and fight with our enemy. The second war is played in the mind of the enemy, and at the same time we are an enemy for our enemy. So that psychological warfare has now transformed into a new name called narrative. But this narrative war or the psychological war or throwing the leaflets war or creating a wish for campaign in an enemy's side has been there from time immemorial, from ages. Okay, we've been a soft country for far too long. We have never believed in narrative. We have never believed in much into psychological warfare, whereas all our opponents have always mastered that. But the blessing in the disguise is that we've been building on the physical warfare, if not on the narrative warfare. And they have defocused themselves from the real capabilities to the narrative warfare. You got it? But when you go out and fight, ultimately,
Yes,
the
sir.
narrative warfare only helps you in a limited way if there is a limited war. But if there is a full blown war, the narrative war has no chance to stand at all. So yes, in a narrative warfare, it appears that they've been able to buy out the first citizen in US with certain offerings, and that certain citizen, the president of US, also drummed up their thing, and many people have not been able to see in the fog of the war what the reality was, but all the experts are fully aware about it. As far as the physical warfare is concerned, 11 terrorist bases were smoked on the very first day. Out of 11 air bases,
Yes, sir.
out of 13 air bases, 11 air bases were smoked in the very second day. Their main nuclear tactical, warehouse, Turkhan base, is still under repair.
Yes, sir.
The Kirana Hills, where they have a major nuclear facility, is still not operational. So while they may be happy to show 6-2 versus 0 aircraft gestures in an international cricket match, they are the first coward who would give in. So Operation Sindoor Part 1 has been a phenomenal test laboratory for India. The India's electronic warfare, the India's anti-aircraft, the RTAD, artillery air defense, the India's drone warfare, the India's air synchronized warfare has been unbelievable. It's phenomenal. It has surprised people who are from the arms and services. God forbid, if Operation Sindoor 2 happens, if Part 2 happens, which is most likely to happen, God save Pakistan. God save Pakistan. I won't be able
Yes,
to,
sir.
you know,
No, I
say
wanted to break
much about
anyways.
it. You will be shocked to see that India is probably now poised to make physical insertion inside the Sindh and connect with Balochistan. And if that happens, it has many ramifications. One ramification, Pakistan has only 4 provinces. It loses one province, Sindh. Second ramification, Balochistan is already sitting on a powder keg. And they were saying last time that had Operation Sindoor Part 1 continued for 7 more days, they would have become independent. So if we make incursions in Kutch region through the Sindh and connect with Balochistan, CCP is gone. Their economic lifeline is gone. One province, Sindh, which is the most prosperous, gone. Second, the most mineral-rich province, Balochistan, gone. Third, they'll become a landlocked country. They will lose their, sea access if we go through this. So India is sincerely looking at, if Pakistan doesn't come to its senses, there is a huge possibility of Operation Sindoor Part 2. And this Part 2 this time could
Part
be
2.
far more damaging and far more consequential for both the
Mhm.
countries, that is Pakistan and India, and global as well.
Yes, sir. To the next one, sir. How prepared is India for modern hybrid threats? For example, cyber attacks, narrative warfare, urban terrorism, and geopolitical pressure from China, Pakistan access, and Middle East instability.
Okay, let's put it. There are too many, questions you have packed into a single question. But let
Questions.
me put it like this: that the Naxalites per se are on a decline and a terminal decline. I do not think by the next year we would even see the traces of nationalism. As far as urban nationalism is concerned,
Yes, sir.
well, we have had left liberal education system for far too long, and we allowed these left Islamic liberal cohorts, taking over all the universities in India. But that's also on a major decline. And the new education policy should also bring a little more changes in the education policy to the extent where you are more focused on vocational training rather than these left Marxist theories being, churning out products from our universities. As far as the Middle East instability is concerned, I do not see that to be impacting us. If at all it impacts us, it impacts us in many ways in a positive way. Okay. I see finally the issue of civilization clashes settling down first in Middle East and then settling down in India. Okay. And that's a good thing for us. There is needs to be a crushing of these, the civilizations which have hydra heads and they are lying in Middle East. Okay. And the de-radicalization of the en masse forces will start from there. Okay. So I do not see much. As far as the global pressures are concerned, I think it's very much visible in the present day government that there is only one country in this world which has stood firm against US, and that's only India. On tariff war, on narrative war, India has put a foot down and has refused to take even the calls of the global police chief, Donald Trump. So, except for Russia and China, which China has played along with USA even now and playing along and not playing along. Russia has done the same, but India has been very firm about it. We will not change our domestic farm policies for you. We will not open our farm dairy produce market for you. Come what may. So the first time ever a common man can see that the national interest is kept above the political correctness of the government of the day. And that gives a lot of confidence to us and the society that we can stand on our 2 feet and earn our bread and eat it too. So it looks positive.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. And with respect to cyber security, sir.
Well, I won't be able to dwell much into it, but what I know that as the world leader in digital payments, and the world leader in the digital governance, e-governance, as the world leader right now in terms of a digitization of every government service, we need the most of cyber. We are the only country in the world where we have more than 1 billion transactions happening every day. We are heading towards 1 trillion transactions every day digitally. And we have proved that there has been no major flaws. But as you increase your, cyberspace, militarily use, non-military use, civil use, economic use, transaction use, payment use, governance use, economic, the government direct tax benefit use, taxation. In taxation, we are using a lot of e-services. So as and when you adopt more and more, your vulnerability definitely increases more and more, and there will be more and more number of cases. But on an overhaul, if you whole you see that probably we have one of the best cyber security in place despite not being very conscious and sanguine to it for a very long period. And now we have the IT Act of India which gives the teach to the government and judiciary for cyber security to some extent. Yes, there is a lot of improvement required, but I believe that yes, the society is changing and the society is adapting to the new cyber village, the new cyber space and the new cyber world and the new cyber way of living. And with that, the cyber laws, the cyber police, the cyber insight, the cyber technology, and the cyber jamming is evolving, and it is working out pretty fine. Is what my take is. But I, not being an expert in that space, I won't be able to, kind of dwell much into that beyond this.
No, sir, that was a great answer actually. To a point there, just since we are talking about now information and things related to it, are we prepared for fifth generation warfare? For example, like information warfare, chaos warfare, information muddling warfare, and stuff like this?
See, please understand, go to a website called Global Power Index. Okay. Global Power Index takes into factor your numerical superiority, your technical superiority, your weapon superiority, your ammunition superiority, your manufacturing superiority of manufacturing all that. or information psychological warfare security, or soft power security, or cultural diplomatic strength superiority, or cultural strength superiority, or sheer size of replaceable people in the uniform superiority, demographic superiority, your economic output superiority, which ultimately sustain the treasury has to sustain it. Putting all that put together in the places, we stand in global power index 3 or 4 ranking in the world. What it means is that we have just a very handful of the countries who can look into our eyes today. That is US, China, and Russia. Russia, India, I never see for posterity looking into each other's eyes. The other two left is US and China. The US and China both are always eyeing to have India on either side because they are split in the middle. You got it? Now, you look
Yes, sir.
at the example. India has shown eyes to the US by attacking Pakistan deep inside Pakistan for the first time after 1971 war. And it has challenged the entire military hardware provided, entire strategic support provided to the Pakistan by the US, and it has also hit its nuclear weapons. So India has shown eyes to the US, and US has nothing to fight with India all the way from US. US is not in a position to fight and defeat India today in our geography. The same way we cannot do that in their geography. So US is out of question. Okay, this is definitely out of question. US doesn't have the technical superiority to be able to defeat a country of this size and this might in their land, in their geography. US could not do that to Afghanistan. US could not do that to Vietnam. US could not do that to
Yes, sir.
Korea. US could not do that to Australia. US could not do that to Philippines. US could not do that to any country. The US could not do that to Iraq. Leave alone. US could not do that to Syria. So forget that US has any capability to fight with India in Indian geography or in Indian waters. Next comes is China. China has tried its level best to send that message to India. After 1962, China lived in a different world. It has been doing slimy slicing in entire Ladakh region for 70 years. And entire Aksai Chin is gifted by the previous governments of Congress, their liberal policies. Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. But see, the tables have turned from 2014. Entire border infrastructure has been lifted. Now we have Old Ollie. We have a airfield there, the highest airfield in the world, staring right into the China. Entire infrastructure of BR or Border Road Organization is, lifted up in 900, 2000 kilometer border LAC with China. China tried that in Doklam, they got defeated by us. China tried that in Galwan, they got massively defeated and bruised by us. China will not be able to afford a full-fledged war with India if they have to have live again the Chinese civilization even in their dreams. So China can't even think of, for
Yes, sir.
last 40 years, China is thinking of capturing Taipei. Okay? And China has not been able to do that. China has not been able to make an attempt to that. China can only boss around with smaller countries in China Sea. India is a giant country. You cannot bite it, chew it, and swallow it. Forget about digesting it. And China has a one-child policy. So
Okay, sir.
every Chinese soldier is a great reel master. They can make beautiful reels, and they're chocolate boys. They have not been able to rotate their soldiers in Galwan in this winter. Every third month, they've all fall high altitude sickness. So China is in a bubble. And China has a military hardware more than us. China has more ships than us. But China doesn't have the man behind the machine. China will be a bruised country and very badly bruised country if China ever gets into a full-blown conflict with India. What India is doing is preparing for a 2.5 front war, a war with China, Pakistan, and internal enemies together. And India is moving fast ahead in that.
I wanted to ask specifically from the point of information warfare because these people, like in US and China, they invest money in certain people in India, particularly into the information sector, so that they can manipulate or spread fake news or I don't know, like articles and stuff like this, which impacts and also hampers the mindset of many people or young generation or I don't know, in that perspective.
No, I will not be, very enthusiastic about touching upon the minor things about making reels and TikTok. TikTok is banned in India. But if you look at the electronic,
Yes, sir.
electronic and military vulnerability, you look at in India. Very recently, for last about 6 years in India, India has completely, set up its military industrial base, where now we have domestic components into our armaments and ammunition going up to 80-90%. So it is impossible for the other countries to now creeping into our systems. So our systems will not be like the Chinese can switch off something and all our planes will fall down. No, that's not going to happen anymore. Then
Yes,
we have now own semiconductor industry coming in place, where we will have our own chips all the time. Similarly, we have our own phones being manufactured in India. We have our own chips being manufactured in India. We have our own navigation system, NAVIC, in India. So I do not really see that we are as vulnerable as what we were about 2 decades back. And minor, hiccups here and there are more of real stories and Instagram stories, but they are not of any major impact.
what is military principle or processes that Indian civil institutions and corporate sectors urgently need to adopt, like from the point of view of documentation, discipline, SOPs, or structures?
See, I am not a competent authority to kind of make great recommendations there, but what I could definitely suggest is yes, our education system should have more employability skills, and a basic building blocks of the leadership attributes and skills should be imparted and trained there. And then the corporate world should emphasize more onto internal, kind of training and coaching methods to be able to bring up their people much faster. So the corporate leadership, actually is pretty smart, pretty good, but they do not have that interest of the organization much ahead of their own interest, which happens in the uniform. So if the corporate world or corporate leadership or the corporate money can borrow this from the military leadership, where they put the interest of the Jawans first, the interest of their battalion second, the interest of their nation third, and the last is their own interest. I think a similar approach, if it can be brought into our corporate world, we could be a corporate pioneer in the world. Except for that and the raw input material, that is the fresh graduates, to be more employable and more vocationally inclined and trained, and having a leadership training at the school and undergrad level, and then the specific job specific, much more empowerment and enhancement within the corporate could be a great push for them.
Superb, sir. Wonderful answer, sir. To the last one for today, and that is it's related to your now the other background, professional background. You have placed 2000 plus professionals globally. How has the global perception of the Indian workforce changed across GCC, US, Europe, and Australia?
Okay, so to be very honest with you, I work with the corporates in Australia, New Zealand. I work with a lot of corporates in Europe. I've been working with lots of business houses. I won't call corporates there, but I would call as business houses because they are more family run
Okay.
businesses in Middle East for very long, about 16, 17 years. My unique experience has been that we being a, heavily populated country, we provide excellent manpower at both end of the spectrum. The highly educated we provide as corporate leaders, and they are there are plenty for you to see in US, UK, Canada, Europe, Australia, all who's and who of the largest, corporates which go up to $2 trillion in valuation are being headed by Indians. At the same time, go to any street in the Middle East and you will find all the construction worker, infrastructure worker, and the blue collar workers as Indians. So Indians are extremely good at skill technical level, despite not being a great technical skill upgradation, blue collar technical skill upgradation infrastructure in India in a professional manner as a vocational training, what we see in Australia, New Zealand. Despite not having that, these people have graduated in on the job training, and those which are purely on the strategic level and the modern age economy level corporates, those are there for you to see. Probably what India could also offer to the rest of the world is mid-level management. That's where I think we are still yet to, kind of to be a prominent figure. When it comes to the, say, technical in healthcare, I think we are the one who give a tough time to Philippines. When it comes to truck drivers, we give a tough time to the Pakistanis and the rest of the world. When it comes to, say, construction, we give tough time to the rest of the South Asia. So I think, yes, both in the blue collar landscape, technical skills, vocational skills, consumption of the corporates and family businesses, as well as the modern day new economy lines of businesses, corporate houses. And of both the places, we shine. We shine really, outshine, a lot of our peers. But the middle portion is something where we could also focus, and I think the new education policy is focusing a lot on that. We will get to see the fruits of it in coming years.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. So then we will end our first part here for today. And stay tuned for the upcoming second part in the upcoming weeks. Once again, thank you, Colonel Sir, for joining our Purva Paksha channel. I hope Sir had enjoyed it, the discussion on our channel. And I ask all my subscribers, new subscribers to please like, share and subscribe to the channel. ये channel अगर चलेगा तो आपके support से ही चलेगा. Thank you very much.
I recommend to everybody who are listening to it to subscribe to Purva Paksha. We have a very young and bright, energetic podcast owner sitting in Germany and doing a great job to the society. He's paying back to the society in this way. And I ask the people who are watching it to subscribe to it, not only subscribe to it, but to contribute to it if it is possible, and motivate him and kind of encourage him to do more and more of this great job, and that to sitting offshore and doing an inshore job for us.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words. Thank you.